Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 455.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I am your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you're here today because here's the thing. Often when we are presented with challenges, we can say to ourselves, you know what? This is too much for me. Or we're presented with opportunities and we can come up with reasons as to why it won't work. And really what it comes down to is having the correct mindset, having the correct attitude, and most importantly, being willing to take action regardless of how you think you might be perceived, or more importantly, how on earth you can feel like, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing. But that doesn't matter. What does matter is getting into action and making things happen. So let me ask you this question. Let's pretend that you grew up in an entrepreneurial household. Let's pretend that for the first part of your life that you were in a situation in which, okay, you got to hang out around business people, but what began to happen is that you watched your father's business fall apart. What do you do? Now, let's imagine that you're 13. What do you do? Well, today's guest decided that, you know what, I'm going to go out there and make something happen. I don't care how old I am. I don't care what I know or don't know. I don't care what you think. We're going to make it happen. And today he spends his time traveling with his family around the world, building and investing in businesses, and has been doing so for multiple decades. That means it's time to pay attention. That means you are about to learn some lessons. That means, ladies and gentlemen, that this is going to be one of those that you're going to listen to more than once. Help me welcome none other than Lior Gans. Lior, how are you doing?
I'm very well, and thanks for the introduction.
You know, it was really funny is that all that practicing before, and I still messed up the last name. It was supposed to be Gans, and I said Gans again, even though I knew you were okay with it. I was still trying, though. Does that happen a lot?
Well, Lior, Gans or Gans is less important. What is very important is that many people say, is your name Liar?
No.
Or Lior? Yeah. Well, in America, obviously.
Okay, that I was confident on Lior. It was the last one I was missing. Anyway, that's good. I'm glad that you're here. Now,
I always say that just my mother calls me Liar.
Oh, that's funny. Got it. So this being your first time here, what I want to do is I want to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody the first time that they're here. You ready?
Yep.
All right. Now, I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman, Spider-Man, whatever. And because I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common. Occasionally, we can envision ourselves getting dressed up in a cape and saving our customers and flying around town and helping them with our products and services, etc., which I think is fun. Now, also, like a superhero, an entrepreneur, well, they have a beginning. For example, There was a time, like in Spider-Man's history, where he was just a college kid going to school, trying to earn some pizza money, take some photos. That was it. And then one day something happens to him. And then after that something happens to him, he discovers, oh my gosh, I have all of these great powers and I get to choose whether or not I'm going to use them for good or evil. So my question to you is as follows. What we're curious about is before, traveling the world, before, building and running the businesses, before your time with, venture capital and all the things that you have done. Our question is, who is Lior Gans?
Well, I guess what happened to me is I started out playing basketball and was really good at it as a team sport, obviously. But my role was always the playmaker, so I had control over the pace, control over the ball, and this is just in hindsight, right? When you're 10 or 12, you don't think about these things, but
No, I didn't.
in hindsight, being the playmaker for the team and running the show, it really helped me to figure out how to make other people better, or how to look for plays that can accentuate their talents. And I think what happened to me one time, and this was when I was in fifth grade. We had a tournament, and the coaches deliberately put me on a team that was inferior. They built two teams for the tournament, and mine was inferior by many levels. So it was like the Warriors playing the Kings in 2018, and the Kings won. And
Wow.
and what happened to me? What happened to me was all this attention came because it came from nowhere, and it was a game that was won because I yelled at my other teammates. I placed them and where they need to be on the court. I constantly became the initiator, and I think what happened is I developed this idea that I have to do things on my own because other people will not have the same fire as I have, or as I do. In other words, what I realized very early is that not all people are built alike, and when you go through life, you cannot expect anything from anyone. From anyone, not anyone. And then 1 year later, my father goes belly up and goes bankrupt. When I was just 13, around that age, started having trouble. So you can't really pinpoint the age. But then I realized that it's in my own household, that I can't rely on anyone. I just got to have to do it on my own. And I started, taking up jobs, clothing store, deliveries when I had the biking license and the motorcycle license, and babysitting and assisting basketball coaching, everything like that, and then just saving up money. So at age 16, what I had that none of my friends had was this idea that I need to save money. Kids, they get an allowance and they spend everything. Most of them don't have a bank account or anything else that has to do with money. And I was I was swimming in that subject, and figuring out what to do. Luckily, my grandfather gave me a book by Warren Buffett, at age 16, because he said, look, you can't just sit on this money, because you just look at it and think it does nothing. Because kids, when they get allowance and they keep it in these piggy boxes or in the room or whatever, and it means nothing to them. It's like a dinosaur toy. They don't get that they can deploy capital and make money. So, now that I have a daughter, she's only 2, but next year when she figures this, when I can really talk to her, I'm gonna take her to the bank, open it, show her her bank account, and tell her, look, if you deposit this money, you should demand that the bankers give you interest. If you don't like the interest on it, because it's your money, you should do something else with it. I want her to learn very early that capital can be deployed in order to create more capital. And so that happened really early for me, that idea that I can invest my money. But I saw that investing money takes 30 to 40 years to really compound into a motherlode. In other words, for most people, investing should be secondary, not primary, in their pursuit of wealth in life. Because even Buffett, that had a business where he made money just from running it, and not just investing, although he owns like 37% of it, only in his 60s did the real boom come. So, for people who want to live a great life and have a high standard of living early on, it has to be business and entrepreneurship that gets you there. It's very rare to see an investor who's a full-time investor who is wealthy early on in life. If it didn't come from some sort of an outside source like inheritance money or something like that that gave him the initial capital. In other words, building your capital is step one. Um, and so I started investing as a secondary means of income starting at age 16. And then I figured, okay, I need to start building businesses. But that character flaw of always trying to place people in the right places and be very demanding, it made me fail in the first few businesses that I attempted. And so I realized that instead of trying to put people where I need them, I need to find the right people initially. And so that was a very important pursuit for me, not to put old wine, in new bottles because it will just stink anyways. So my pursuit became I need to find good people initially. I need to just pay more and find good people, and that's what I've stuck to my entire life, and I think that works because it's very hard to quantify how much people should receive in salaries. In other words, if you raise someone's salary by 20% or 30% or 50%, sometimes it means nothing in the big picture. So you should definitely do it. And I think corporations are making a mistake with how they structure wages and how they employ people. And small business people have the upper end here because they can really demand a lot from their employees because they have so few of them. So the employees know they're going into an adventure. And on the flip side, they can pay much more because the employees will not have regular hours or, all kinds of benefits and et cetera. It will be more about bonuses rather than, dental insurance and all that kind of stuff. So people who come to work for small businesses are better equipped to for ups and downs because they're not there for the security. They're there to grow with the company. So that's the kind of people that I've been looking for with every business venture that I've had. And I think what that day also taught me in the basketball court is that you should go to places where there's little competition. You should find places where you're not blocked from entering. The barrier of entry is very low. So what happened in that game is I realized that if I do a pick and roll, which is a simple thing, then they always switch the defender on me. And the defender was a tall guy. You remember, this was fifth grade. I was like I was like the smallest guy on the court. That's why I was the playmaker. But I realized I'm much more faster, quicker to make all kinds of fakes, and therefore I just returned to that again and again and again and again for minutes on end. Same drill, same result, and until they're this is fifth grade, so the coach doesn't take time out and tell them that hey, it's very basic stuff. So I realized that if the competition is low, I can hammer it home. And therefore, I always migrate in terms of businesses to where it's going to be easier. And I think people are trying to make life more, I would say, adventurous. But you shouldn't. You really shouldn't. It's not smart unless you really like to hit a walls. Some people just, they want to succeed, but they're afraid of success. So they always go to the wrong place. And so these are my lessons in terms of my bigger lessons in terms of where I am. And I think the final thing that happened to me very early on in that clothing store is that I realized that I know how to communicate with other people in terms of sales. So if I had problems in terms of being too demanding and too bossy and creating friction early on, what I never had problems with was the marketing side. And I think that is something that has stuck with me. And I would even go as far as telling you, Jay, that most businesses they rely upon marketing more than anything else, more than how good their products or services, more than how good their customer services. Marketing, branding yourself or branding your company is the number one thing that people need to do in life in order to really succeed. So,
what's interesting is how true, not only how true that statement you made about marketing is, but also how few people actually want to do it, especially as a small business owner, etc. It doesn't always feel like that's not going to bring me any sales today, and I don't want to deal with that now. But before we talk about that, you mentioned a number of very quality things that I want to make sure that we highlight and that we dig into just a little bit, because I think it's going to be very, very relevant. Like, chief among them, you mentioned that you got a book from your grandpa that was by Warren Buffett. Well, what was the book, man? We want to know too.
Well, what you do is you go to Amazon and you either if you really want a long book, you go with Security Analysis, the classic investing book, which wasn't in Hebrew, where I grew up in Israel. So it wasn't in Hebrew at the time. So that was out of the question. And good deal, because it's like 900 pages. Yeah. The other book, which got me started, and this the book that was translated to Hebrew and was given to me, is called The Intelligent Investor. And I would say it's what Buffett attributes his own success with, that book. And for listeners of this show, I would say right now my number one investment book is called The Most Important Thing Illuminated by Howard Marks, 1.5 billion net worth hedge fund guy. But this is a very simple book and one of the only books that I ever finished. Top to bottom. So I'm one of those people who starts reading and then I say, okay, I get it. Thanks.
Right.
This is a book I actually finished. It doesn't become complicated, and if you really make yourself adjustable to it, then you'll be a superior investor for sure.
Indeed, and I like it. Now, you also mentioned something that I think a number of the people that are listening and tuning in for are highly interested in, because I know for myself, being in the real estate world, that's kind of, where I live a lot. But at the same time, I feel like I'm always telling and saying, hey, guys, we have to have a business as well. You need a business or a cash, what I call a down payment generation engine that allows you to then go buy all of the property that you're looking for. But you called it building your capital is step one, which suggests to me you look at it completely differently than I do, which I think is great. And I would want to understand more about what you consider to be building your capital. Hey guys, thanks for listening as always, and I'm glad that you continue to support with each and every download and subscription and share. One of the things that I want to ask you, though, is where are you listening to me from right now? I know some of you, maybe you're on a treadmill, maybe you're washing dishes, maybe you're walking that dog, and some of you are actually in a vehicle driving right now. One of the fun things that you can do to get some of your time back is begin to living a car-free existence. But even then, it can be a little complicated. So one of the things that I want you to do is I want you to go over to Zipcar. Go to joinzipcar.com/cashflow diary. It's a way that I am able to still go get a car just for a few hours, very, very simply, so that if I have a lot of errands to run and sheets to drop off and running to the short-term rentals, or if I just want to go for a long trip up to LA and back, etc., I can rent a car for a very, very short period of time. And the cool part is I don't even have to pay for any gas. Again, go to joinzipcar.com/cashflow diary.
I would say the first thing that every person needs is something that I call the start over fund.
Did you say a start over fund?
Exactly. A start over fund is where you take about 12 months worth of your lifestyle burn rate. Let's say that your lifestyle burner is about $5,000 a month. Okay. So you multiply that by 12, that's $60K. You need to save up $60,000 and have it aside as a start over fund. Now, you may do it outside the banking system if you're afraid of another 2008, a bank holiday, depending on where you are in the world, obviously. So you can create a situation where it's diversified between a few of the major currencies like the Swiss francs, the British pound, the US, the euros and yens, and just keep it at your residence or keep it wherever you want, a bank vault, etc. Or you can really deposit those funds. It doesn't matter. You need a starter fund in case you have an emergency, a health emergency. You're in a situation where something happened with the stock markets, with your job. You need to have a parachute, which is financially based and not just skill based. So some people get fired and then they have enough skills to get another job. That's fine.
Okay. Hold on. I want to stop you right there. There's one thing I know that somebody is thinking, and they're going to send us an email. So let me ask it right now, because they're thinking to themselves, Lior, I would love to put away 12 months, but how do I even do that part? Because like I know, the savings rate is abysmal. How do we even get to the part of being able to do that first piece?
Well, you need to figure out the lifestyle burn rate that you're comfortable with. And then you need to figure out how to save up 12 months of it. So it all comes back to how you bring value to the marketplace. What's your skill? What can you do to generate funds for yourself or your family? And then to make sure that you save money, meaning that you spend less than you earn. It's very basic stuff, but what you need to really do is shut your eyes to the millions of distractions that are out there in terms of how you can spend your money, especially in the United States. I'm right now in San Francisco, and people are just eating out. And when you swipe your debit card for $150 every day on food, that's unsustainable to most American families. So, people got to make tough choices, because building wealth is a situation which is not easy at all. In fact, 95% of the people are 3 paychecks away from from being broke, and even in America. So you've got to do something different than other people. And when I break down my day, you take 7 to 8 hours your sleep. And then you have another hour, an hour and a half to 2 hours that you for breakfast, lunch, dinner, or just 2 meals a day, depending on what your nutrition is, and errands and all that kind of stuff around that. So 10 hours out of your day are gone before you even know it, every day of your life. Mm-hmm. So 14 hours, you got to figure out what you want to do. And you want to balance it out between family, friends, just pure entertainment, I would call it, like doing something fun or something for the first time. And you want some alone time to think and be within yourself. So you really got to figure out how in 5 or 6 hours a day you deliver value to someone else. And so if you want to do it in 5 or 6 hours like I'm doing it, where you don't give your entire life away to work, and you still have a great financial position, then you really need to bring superior value. And so it all comes down to what you can do for other people. Now, the more I work over the years, because I've been working for 21 years now, since I was 13, the more I know that if you service less people, in other words, if you specialize in servicing a particular type of person and become indispensable to them, you'll make more money quicker than monetizing it to a larger audience. Now, obviously, if you're going to build a huge business, which is going to demand an insane amount of time out of your life, then you're more than welcome to do that. And then, obviously, there's a huge payoff at the end of the road for that as well. The people, the families who have taken, well, I don't need to mention the big companies in the world, but that has taken the better part of their lives. So 60, 70 years of their life to build huge businesses like Johnson & Johnson. And I'm fine with that. I don't judge these people at all. But that is no mean feat. It's a huge undertaking. So if you want to speed things up and you want a more balanced life because you want to see more of the world and you want more flexibility, you need to figure out how to do it in 5 to 6 hours a day, and you need to figure out, if you really want an exceptional flexibility, how to do it location independent. So you don't have to be in any particular place in order to do that business. And I've traveled to over 40 countries in the past 10 years, working and enjoying the world, right? Enjoying stuff. So that is kind of where I'm at, and I think that anyone who really shuts their eyes to all other possibilities and just figures this out, he will become smarter than other people in about 6 to 12 months of hard work, and he will be able to become aware of opportunities before other people are aware of them. In other words, alertness to opportunity is much more efficient for people who are just shutting their eyes to any other opportunity. And I'll give you the best example. My father and mother and my grandmother just wanted me to go to university since I was like 21. There's like, okay, you got to go to university. You got to take that step. My grandmother would call me like twice a week. I'll send you the money. I'll buy you that degree. And it's just about shutting your eyes and your mind to all other possibilities than becoming an entrepreneur and just figuring out how to do it. And I think the most important thing that you can do is start to create relationships with people that can take you there, either as a person to bounce ideas off of, but more so as potential partners. And here's where I give you the answer the long answer that the short answer to the long answer that I just given you, because I know your audience is sophisticated, and I've listened to a number of your shows, and I know that they're looking for actionable advice. But I want to kind of give them the background. So, what I think you should do, and this is the quickest way to reach a good situation in life. And don't listen to anybody else, to your parents, or don't listen to this inner voice that says that there's a huge learning curve and it's going to take you 20 years and you're going to be mid-40s by the time you reach peak earning years. None of that.
Hey. Mid-40s is okay. Just to be clear, some of us are mid-40s. Let's not beat up on that.
No. Well, I'll be mid-40s in 10 years, and I'm fine with that as well. What I'm saying is you don't need to wait for 20 years out of your life, beating away at the clock.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, if you want, Jay, what you need to do is find somebody either in your locality or somewhere else that you want to work with. And it could be a millionaire, a multimillionaire, it could be a billionaire. You figure out how to reach that person and add value to him. And that is what I've done, and it worked for me. And so that is the only experience I can talk about. I can't talk about how other people do it. What I've done is I found 3 people that were great at what they did, and I did everything to connect with them. Everything, including I showed up on one person's doorstep with a business plan.
Nice.
And with another person, I agreed to work for free for 6 months. And with another person, I invited them to a vacation where I funded the vacation, and we became good friends before we became partners. So, and it's not just me. I mean, this is something that people do. It's called being a stowaway passenger. You basically go and get into other people's operations, and then you learn them, and you learn them well enough to either leave them and compete, or to quote unquote threaten them that you're going to leave them in order to get a better equity position in the business, because they see that you're indispensable. It all comes down to being indispensable, and I think that if you can do that, then you'll have a great success, because otherwise you're going to compete with people that have so much experience that it's going to be very hard for you to make it happen unless you're naturally gifted at something. And the problem with that is that most people don't know what they're naturally gifted at. In other words,
Right.
so many people finish lawyer school, law school. They finish law school, and 90% of them are not going to be good lawyers. It's just true. So 10% of them are either gifted or they're willing to put in the hours to become gifted. In other words, they're willing to replace quality with quantity and just work on themselves, either at home or on the job. They're just willing to work more than other people. And at some point they'll be good at what they do, really good at what they do, and confident that they're good at what they do, so they can command high salaries. Because some people also are afraid to demand more, and that's something that I think is a huge flaw in our society. People need to really figure their self-worth and work on that in order to make sure that they're not underpaid. And people obviously are mostly underpaid because employers think that they have the upper hand. So yeah, that's kind of my long answer.
It. So let me ask you this question, because you said something earlier in terms of going places where there's little to low or no competition, and I'm curious, in your history, in your business, where have you found that to be? Where for you, how did you discover those areas, and how can somebody find an area of little to low competition? And what areas have you found the most success in that little to low competition field?
One thing that is broader, I would say in English, right?
Mm-hmm.
One thing that is broader, Jay, is to find an area where there's little hype. So that's
okay.
That is an industry that you can really succeed in. So in other words, if nobody wants to do something, then it's an area where there's opportunity in general, right? In other words, in 2017, and just so people understand, what I do, part of what I do now is share, my investment philosophy and strategies and everything at the Wealth Research Group newsletter, and it's a free newsletter. It was ranked #1 in the world for 2017 because we were early in March of 2017 to cover specific opportunity like Ethereum, which is like now it's the second largest cryptocurrency on the planet. It was then worth $12 a coin, and by September, so 6 months later, it was worth $1,000 a coin. Now at $1,000 a coin, it wasn't a good opportunity, but everyone wanted to get involved.
Right.
At $12, nobody knew what it was except for me, who went on to who took a plane and flew to a number of these investment conferences and realized that this is a big deal early on, but nobody wanted to invest. So it's so amazing that when something was that attractive, no one wanted to have anything to do with it. But when it was mainstream media and when the founder was on all of these TV shows, everyone wanted to invest. And that's kind of what I'm talking about with hype. So in other words, if an industry, an area, something is crowded, just make sure you understand you're going to have much more competition in a crowded audience. And so, for example, when I got into real estate, I got into real estate in 2009, when people were closing doors and closing shops, and they were saying, that's it, the mortgage business is going away for 30 years. Banks are going belly up, and there was many opportunities. Less people involved means that you're in general going to have better margins. So look for those areas. Another area, and I sold my real estate business in 2013. So I built it and sold it. Another way to get into low competitive businesses is to go for professions that aren't official professions. In other words, a doctor is an official profession. A lawyer is an official profession. An engineer is an official profession. You go and study it. Now, if you find professions that are not that are not official, where you kind of create your own title, you're going to have much less competition because people don't even go to school for that, or they don't say, "Hey, mommy, I want to be a fireman." That's one thing, right? It's an official profession. But when you tell people, "Hey, I want to do X or Y and Z," that is sort of an official profession. When you find ways to bring value that are not official professions, you're going to have less competition because that's where the real value is at. Because you present to your client, "Hey, is anyone doing this for you?" Or to your employer, "Is anyone doing this for you? Why don't I do this for you? I see that is lacking in our company." And that is kind of where the mother lode is. If you're, because not only are you equipped to do that because you found a niche or a lack, or a problem. So if you are able to identify it, that means that you're almost certainly going to be able to figure out a solution. So not only are you passionate about this, which is key, that you also are presenting an opportunity for your employer or your client to give them value that nobody else gives. So it's by definition a low competitive environment because you're pitching the idea to him and he's not coming to you. In other words, if a client can choose between law firms, then it's very competitive. But if you come to someone and say, "You know what? I've seen you on the news. I've seen you here. I've seen you around town. You have a problem with such and such. Why don't you let me show you what we can do?" That is something else. So I think that is the second thing that can really help people. And I'll leave it at that because that kind of gives people enough to think about and work on.
Indeed.
A famous story about an employee of Gillette who saw that they wanted to do a shampoo, low price shampoo to target the African American community in the U.S. This was back in the 80s, and they couldn't make it work. Marketing was bad. Something didn't happen. Now, she's a regular employee at Gillette. She comes up with a business plan all of her own. No one tasks her with this. Nobody tells her to do this. She just does it. She just comes to the executives and say, "Hey, I think I can make this line of products work for us." And she ends up doing it, becomes a senior person at that, and she's now one of the 500 most influential women in the world and in business. I can't pinpoint her name right now, but this is not only for entrepreneurs. This is within organizations, within huge organizations like Gillette, within small organizations. It doesn't matter. You need to you need to do this. In other words, you need to initiate this out of your own personal agenda and not wait for anyone to task you with it. Just be alert to opportunities and alert to failures so you can find alternative solutions for it. So it doesn't have to be that you say, "Hey, you know what? Let me quit my job and become an entrepreneur today because Lior said so." No, you can find many opportunities within your own business, your own industry, as long as you're willing to put in the work. And most of the work is internal. It's just thinking.
Indeed. Oh, you never said anything more true right there. So when it comes down to it, I know there's a number of individuals listening who want to, follow you, find out more, catch up with what you're doing. Maybe they were one of those people that heard about Ethereum after it was a little bit later than they anticipated, and they want to move to the front of the class, so to speak. What's going to be the best way for them to catch up with you and find out more about what you guys got going on?
Yeah, definitely. Go to wealthresearchgroup.com, wealthresearchgroup.com, and then you can either sign up for the free newsletter, and that's where I share all of my highest priority, top-notch ideas. It's about the economy in general, personal finance lessons, and then it's also about specific opportunities. So if we find something that is, in our opinion, undervalued and unique in the stock market mostly, then we actually cover that idea. So it's generic and general, and then it's also very specific. And in 2016 when we got started, the Federal Reserve was starting to raise interest rates, and the mining sector became a very lucrative sector. We were on top of that with about 12 companies that we covered in 2016 that more than doubled their price, and it's a very unique situation to have occur on you. And then in 2017 we shifted focus to cryptocurrencies, and Ethereum was our biggest winner, but we had a few of them that went up 30 times in 1 year. So just some of the subscribers that worked with $1,000 or $2,000, they send me thank you letters with I bought a new car. Obviously it doesn't happen every year, and
Right.
in 2018 we're looking at other key areas that we think can go ballistic, but these are obviously also high risk, high reward opportunities. We also talk about the core of my portfolio, which is the Buffett type mentality, the Buffett type stocks, and some of them are also featured right there on the website. If you go and you click on the top menu on either Wealth Stocks tab or the Special Reports tab, but those are the best ways to get involved, and that's it. The sole mission of this project is to help people build a financial fortress so that no government can screw with you, and definitely none of your friends.
Understood. Totally. I totally like that. Now, as we wind down here, I have a final question for you, and I would love to hear your answer. As I said earlier, there's a number of people listening who maybe they're just thinking about getting started, or maybe they're, ready to build their business to the next level. Maybe they've been going for a little while and they're like, I'm ready for the next plateau. So when we reach these moments of decisions, I mean, they've been listening to you and they're like, you know what? Lior's right. I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to go places where there's little to no competition. You know what? I'm going to go get a copy of The Intelligent Investor and read it. I'm going to do these things. I'm going to make something happen for myself. Oftentimes, when we get to these moments of decision, there's also a companion that comes along with it that usually comes in the form of a voice that tells us, things like, who are you? Why on earth do you honestly think you can? I mean, come on. And for some people, they're related to that voice. So my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend that the person listening is actually going to follow through, Lior, and they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. What would you suggest that they do?
I suggest they do a self-assessment, because not all people are equipped to launch their own business. It's just a reality, and you need to find out where your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And if you're not ready to become an entrepreneur, then you don't need to. I mean, it's just the way it is, and you can work within industries to a position where you have so much latitude and so much wiggle room that you're basically an entrepreneur within a business. You don't own the business, so you don't own the equity, but you have a lot of responsibilities. Now, once you get to that position, then it's really easy to spin off and become an entrepreneur, because you already have a lot of reputation. You can probably get some of the employees to migrate with you and some of the clients to migrate with you. But before you do that, if you're not ready to do that kind of stuff, then you really need to self-assess and make sure that you find what you are good at, which is where you're going to find less friction in your life. So if you see that, hey, when I talk to people, I can sell products real easy, then good, you're a salesman. If you see that you can't even open your mouth because it's hard for you, you need to outsource that kind of stuff and not be worried about it. So two things I would say to people is, one, self-assessment, and secondly, do not try to put in the hours, and we're talking major hours. Do not put in the effort to strengthen your weaknesses. Mm-hmm. You just don't need to. Just strengthen your strength, because that's where you're going to find the money. If I ever tried to edit one of the interviews that I do, I will go out of business.
Yeah, I totally understand. Oh, I completely understand that last
what
one
I
for
need
sure.
what I need to what I need to strengthen is becoming a better host and a better guest, because that's where I'm already kind of refined. In other words, if you try and do what your hands, feet, and your mind are telling you, do not attempt this, you're a fool, then just don't. Just don't do that. I've I've tried waitressing early on, like 16, for one day, and I was pleasantly told to quit.
Nice.
So I realized that some things are not for me, and it's so fine. And when you said that voice talks to you and says, will it be me? Do I deserve this, or all that kind of stuff? Well, that voice has a flip side that just says, why can't it be me? In other words, what gives other people any right to be the one that does something? You need to find your strength, and once you do that, once you find your character strengths and your mental strengths, your intellectual strengths, all that kind of stuff, and it takes time, and the more you just work harder than other people, you'll find those places. The minute you find them, you feel like you're the smartest person in the room, and you can't fail. So confidence comes along with that. Uh, just realize that once my parents saw that I was successful, they flipped their entire game. Like they was like, "You don't need Udi. You're good. You're good at what you." Just don't worry about what other people kind of judge it, because they're judging it off of their own eyes, and within your own ears. You talk to yourself 24/7 for all of your life. You just constantly speak to yourself, either consciously or subconsciously. And that is the only voice you got to worry about. Just build a wall around that, and you're all good. Life is not a struggle, but competition is there. In other words, do not become naive and think that just because you decided to do something, it's gonna happen. Because it won't. This is not the movie The Secret here. This is real life. So um, just make sure that you understand this. Now, I am all in favor of staying positive. In fact, there is no other mental attitude that one should take. But I don't think that being positive means that a Ferrari is going to land in your driveway. So it's the mix of making sure that you're not motivated but inspired. In other words, many people are motivated, then they go out and they step into a muddle of a puddle of water. Their foam drops into them, and then that's it. Their entire vision just went away. They had this vision that they're going to be a multi-millionaire in 5 years, but the phone dropped in the puddle in the puddle, and then somebody was nasty to them on the street, and they lose their entire game because they were motivated at leaving a conference or a pep talk. You need to be much more than that. You need to be inspired. This needs to be the only thing you think about. So nothing is a challenge. Nothing is a challenge because everything has a solution. And that's kind of where I want to leave people, because that's the real issue. So many people are very motivated, but so little are truly inspired.
Indeed. I definitely want to be the first to say that I appreciate the fact that you are get out there and do it type of person, make it happen, no excuses. And thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge, your insight, as well as your wisdom here with us today at the Cashflow Diary.
I really hope I helped.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? That means get over to wealthresearchgroup.com. Why? Because you know there's more to know and learn, and most importantly, do. Because if you heard anything, I know you heard the following words. You heard that they help you build your financial fortress. I know you want one of those, so let's go out there and make it happen. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.